If you picked up the latest Kill Team Hivestorm box, or like me, you have lots of Warhammer 40k or Kill Team terrain lying about unpainted, then this might be for you. I am a big fan of the post-apocalyptic, overgrown, abandoned, ruined type of terrain, and I'm especially fond of gaming boards that kind of lean into that atmospheric, realistic, immersive style. Give me sculpted terrain and boards over mats and cardboard any day. I'm not saying cardboard terrain is bad, it's great for beginners, but I like to have a more immersive game, so I like to use the sculpted plastic stuff. With that in mind, I am going to show you my process for painting up the latest box of Kill Team terrain in an overgrown, abandoned, ruined style. Let's get into it. The techniques on show here are not difficult nor require any special skill. It's all stuff a beginner can do, provided you have the paints and materials and a couple of old brushes to use. I've put the stuff I've used on screen here so that you can pause it and pick up anything you don't have. You'll see as we go through that the goal here is close enough is good enough. So if you've got something similar to what I use, it'll almost certainly do. Okay, first things, let's get this piece primed. I primed 2 pieces here, but I'm really just going to paint up 1. Also, these are just walls, so if you're struggling with the floor part of the terrain, let me know and I'll do a part 2 for this tutorial and we'll see about doing a bigger piece with some more floor stuff or ground stuff on there. I picked a mid-grey for priming this, specifically Mechanicus Standard Grey, but Colourforge do a Standard Grey which is colour matched to Mechanicus Standard Grey, or Army Painter also have a Uniform Grey, basically grey. Have I said grey enough yet? Spray 'em, let's go. Next up, Drybrush with Longbeard Grey. Now, as opposed to dry brushing miniatures where we're careful to wipe loads of paint off and we're gently catch a nurgling with the brush strokes, with terrain we're thinking mum's night out 9 months before you were born, fast and loose, lots of wrist action. I'm using a Cryptic cabin, large size dry brush here, and I am going ham on this. Basically, imagine how a 5-year-old might dry brush and just do that. Live a little. Listen, you've been super stressed lately, and this is your opportunity to let your hair down. When that is done, it should look like this, roughly. Now we're going to take a trip to the place your dad has always dreamed of. We're going down to Browntown. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just ask your mum. The brown we're using here is not Rhinox hide, it's Grim Brown from AK, but if it was Citadel, it would definitely be Rhinox hide. Basically cover all the parts that would be iron or a metal like iron, anything that you want to be rust essentially. When that's dry, we're going to do another layer of rusty colour. This time it is not Doombull brown, but it would be if this was Citadel paint. This one is mahogany brown, but something similar to this will do the trick. The trick, in fact, here is to be reasonably haphazard with this, but you want this to be on all of the upward facing areas. If you think about where water hits first and stays after it's rained, or bits where water might collect, those are the bits that you want to hit with this colour. And don't stress about any messiness, rust will stain things, and so a little extra here and there isn't going to hurt anyone. When that's dried, we're going to dry brush all of the metal that we've just rusted up with a dark metal colour. Now, I have, I think, Exhaust Manifold from Vallejo metal colour, but Lead Belcher from Citadel is probably the best option here. You don't want to be quite as heavy with this dry brush, but just hit all the rusty bits as I've done here, and this will already start to come together nicely. Okay, now for the brass or copper or whatever metal we want this to be, we're going to pick a metallic paint. Warplock bronze would be your Citadel choice, but I am on AK burnt tin here, which is close enough. And again, close enough is good enough. Paint that all over the things like pipes, smaller vents, skull surrounds, radiators, any metal bits that you've not done already in rust, basically. From there, we're going to do the cables, nice and simple. We'll do these in black. It helps to be reasonably careful here, just since some are quite small. Then on the inside of the ruins, I'm going to put a grelin earth on the walls. This is to simulate plaster. Now on some of the older Kill Team and 40k terrain, there was actually like a sculpted layer of plaster visible, so it works really well on that. But here I wanted to distinguish the inside from the outside, and the fact that this is crackle paint means that it'll look like peeling plaster work, which should do the trick. Now you want to get this on as thick as you can, since the thicker, the better the crackle effect is going to be. Give this part plenty time to dry. Now at this point, you're actually not doing too badly in terms of a rundown, ruined building paint job, but we're going to do some weathering. First, we'll oxidise the metal parts. Citadel's special effect paint Nylon Oxide is perfect for this, but similar turquoisey patina type paints will also do here as well, I suspect. Anywhere that we did that Warplock bronze or tin colour will get this treatment. In addition to this, you can also add some streaks running down from areas where there might be a build-up. This is a bit kind of artistic in terms of placement, but I try to imagine if there was water or something running down, and then I do that with my brush to kind of replicate that effect. When we're done here, we're going to cover everything, yes, everything, with Agrax Earthshade, or your brown wash equivalent. Now this can be as heavy or as light as you like. I've gone somewhere in the middle. I do want coverage, but I don't want to have like insane build-up. So as an example, here I put too much on, so you can see me going back and using the areas where it's pulled to just dip the brush and suck some of that excess up to use elsewhere as I go. This whole step will dull the metalwork, it'll unify all the parts, it'll dim that Nylon Oxide paint, and it'll help the crackle paint to stick on and stop flaking. Now, While that's drying, you can grab an old blister pack or some thin clear plastic if you have it. With this, we're going to make windows. First, let's give it a thinnish coat of a green paint. So for me, this is like an algae green, but for our Warhammer heads, this could be Castellan green. This doesn't need to be thick, consistent, or have any sort of covering power. Now you can see me at this point sort of fucking about with this and trying to cut it, and I initially thought I'd measure individual window sizes, but that seemed quite small, so then I thought I'll do a panel per window and have it as like a single piece, which has been broken. So it took me a bit of cutting to size and measuring and kind of messing about, but we got there eventually. And I also painted the other side of these bits that I'd cut just so that one side wasn't all shiny. Now, if you're doing this on other Sector Imperialis or Cities of Death buildings, for example, then your measurements will end up being different. What's important is see what works for you, and remember, if you're doing floors or bases on these, then the offcuts from that plastic end up looking like bits of broken glass, so you can add them to the floor. At that point then, I did some details on the piece. These are of course optional, but I wanted to fill in the dials with a light grey, and then I thought I would do the dial hands in red. And once that was dry, I kind of washed them in Nuln Oil for some shading. And then I switched back to the windows and I used super glue to stick those windows into the panels. Now, super glue might give you little white bits on your plastic, but don't stress about that. It'll probably barely show up and it will end up looking like kind of weathering or some sort of fungus buildup. Anyway, by the time we're finished you won't notice. If you have any skulls anywhere at this point, you can put some bone colour on them. I just had the one here, but some of the other pieces in the Sector Imperialis have a few bones and a few sort of skulls. In terms of details, I also did the little lamp glass panes in black just for some difference, although I don't know if it was worth it in the end. I also recovered the red on the dials just to brighten them up after the wash, and I put a dot in the skull's servo eye as well as a few buttons here and there, which kind of didn't have anything on them. And again, probably optional, but these little details can kind of bring a piece to life. Now, I picked out a green wash. This time it was Bealtan green from Citadel, and I washed the entire window pane on both sides and then round the window frames and a few other places, adding streaks down the wall where I felt it would look good. Again, some artistic license on this. Now we're going to do a bit with flock. I think this bit helps tie things together even more, but of course some people won't want flock to fall off all over their gaming boards or get near their minis, and I don't mind this stuff, and really you could probably use some varnish to secure it all a bit more, but I find the PVA glue that we're going to use is more than enough if you give it a good tap. So, First up, we'll want an old brush, a little dish to mix in some PVA glue, some water and your flock. I'm going to use 2 flocks here, but you could use as much as you like. If you have 5 different colours, have at it, it'll be the same process. First, I'll add some water to the PVA glue and make it a bit easier to work with. Out of the bottle, the glue is actually a bit thick. Then I like to add it in areas, again where there would be both sunlight and water build-up, so generally on upper areas, or on areas that might end up, like your mum, quite wet to the touch. The 2 flocks I'm using here are made by Javis, and they are fine turf, which is the size of the flock, and then the 2 colours used are burnt grass and mid-green, which is a bit lighter. I'll start with the burnt grass, and with something to catch the excess, I sprinkle it on and I let it stick to the areas that I've added PVA glue. Much like your weird uncle, a few light taps and a quick blow to get it off should do the trick. Just don't blow directly into your flock bag or tub unless you want it to snow green this Christmas. I added the second flock in much the same way, but I thinned the PVA glue down a little bit more so that it would soak into that first layer of flock a little bit. Same process though, and a simple tap and blow will clear the excess and it will give you a nice fine layer of flock on your painting desk, which you'll be brushing off for the next few months. Now I thought I'd get clever with a few sticky grass tufts here, and I thought I'd pop them on then cut off the excess with my blunt as fuck clippers. It sort of worked, but I guess the key here is you can go to town with what you've got. If you have vines or leaves or other types of flock, bang them on. If you don't worry about it. I think the flocking probably comes more into play when you have floors to cover too, so if we do end up doing a part 2 where I cover some of the floors, we can go crazy with all that stuff. Shit, we might even be able to do some water effects. Who knows? So anyway, here it is. I hope this has given you a nice primer for painting up some overgrown ruins. One day I'll be able to build a full Kill Team board of this stuff and have some properly atmospheric games. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, a like and a subscribe, which is free, will help me get these videos out to more people. And if you'd like me to tackle a part 2 where we look at doing like floors or raised platforms or ground/bases on these kind of terrain pieces, then you can let me know in the comments below or on the Discord, which is free to join. Again, if you are looking for feedback on your minis, you can post them in the Discord and I'll see what I can do for you. That's it for now, so until next time, happy flocking. Is that happy flocking worth? Go flock yourself. Let's get the flock out of here. Bye-bye.